Hello, my name is Ed. I'm the creative director at LimeSharp, and today I'm going to talk to you about headless commerce. In this presentation, I will take you through our personal journey on how and why we transitioned over to building e-commerce stores using this technique. And I'm also going to outline some of the challenges, technical decisions we had to make along the way, and hopefully some of the benefits we've seen building headless, and what it means for developers, agencies, and brands. First, I'd like to give you some background on myself and what we do here at LimeSharp. We work alongside brands to craft first-class e-commerce solutions, hopefully delivering results and driving growth. We have extensive experience working with luxury fashion and beauty brands. We consider as a creative agency led by really good design, solid technical know-how, and our strengths lie in crafting like really simple, refined customer experiences that reflect a brand's DNA and personality. Over the years, we've kept the team relatively small, choosing to focus on quality over quantity. Yes, it is important for us to grow and be profitable, but we want to enjoy the work that we do, enjoy the projects that we work on, and be challenged by the brands that we work with. Now, when we pitch to prospective clients, we like to do our best to ensure we are a good match. There needs to be like good chemistry. We need to feel like we can deliver an exceptional site. And it's taken us quite a long time to figure that bit out, but we're getting better and better at it. Most of the brands we work with have physical stores, but the e-commerce store is the biggest revenue stream, and typically it doesn't match that in-store experience. So all the effort is going on to in-store, but online it's a different story. It's more templated, more structured, almost kind of default Magento. So we try and transform that into an award-winning digital flagship store. This is where headless fits in. So what exactly is headless e-commerce? To put it simply, building a website that is headless means separating the front-end view from the back-end logic. Now, traditionally, lots of CMS platforms are built using server-side languages such as PHP, and many of those systems ship with a templating system built in, allowing you to fetch data from the database directly and displaying on the front end. We predominantly use Magento, which uses a combination of XML and PHTML templates to drive the front end. So if anyone's developed on that platform before, they'll know what I'm talking about. And this is what is called a monolithic architecture. Now, it seems like a big word, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Mono equals one. So utilizing other platforms and bringing their data onto the front end requires great complexity, integrations. For example, we often use a separate CMS for editorial content. As this area in Magento isn't great. Previously we would have had to build an integration to link up Magento and WordPress together, or use an extension to create that seamless front end that we're trying to achieve. So when we're building using a headless approach, you have a completely bespoke front end, and that can be plugged into multiple API endpoints. You're no longer restricted by CMS templating systems. By doing this, another big word, you move to a microservices architecture. Something that's gained huge popularity and traction over the last few years, and no doubt you've heard about it. Building Magento sites for over 10 years. The product is great. It has an incredible feature set and is very powerful for merchants. However, it does have its negatives, and some are pretty well publicized. Many of our issues over the last 10 years have come from its notoriously poor performance. They have invested heavily as a platform in improving that, albeit mainly from introducing new caching systems, which we'll talk about later. When we were using the default templating system, you've got no real control over how elements load in on the page. There's a lot of unused JavaScript bundled in, which can lead to kind of clunky performance. If we thought Magento 1 was complex to customize, we had a shock when 2 arrived in our office. Specifically, front-end development was dramatically slower. The compilation process, fallback system became even more complex, and as an agency, it causes problems. Most of the clients want the build process to be quicker and reducing costs. However, our build times went from 3 months to 5 months, which had significant budget implications and meant we couldn't be as competitive as we were before. Our front-end development on Magento has always required a solid understanding of PHP, XML, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I would consider that as a full-stack developer. This kind of talent is really, really difficult to recruit for. And about 5 to 6 years ago, we started noticing a lot of Angular and React cropping up on more CVs and mentioned in lots of interviews from the developers of frameworks that they want to use in the future. At the time, we were unable to appeal to these developers. They didn't want to learn PHP, let alone XML or Knockout JS. All the kids coming out of uni, boot camps, desperate to use modern front-end frameworks such as Angular, React, and more recently Vue. The main goals for the change in the build approach. First and foremost, we wanted to take back control of the front end of our sites. We wanted to get complete flexibility over the design. And control how elements load and kind of move away from that default Magento look and feel. We wanted to emulate kind of native apps with no page reloads for a far slicker customer experience. We wanted to drastically improve the performance of our front end builds. By building our own framework, we were positive our development cycles would become faster, and this would also allow us to start recruiting modern front end engineers who didn't have to know or learn Magento to start being productive in the team. And lastly, we wanted to open up our offering and be able to seamlessly integrate with other platforms and third-party services. I'm sure many of you know how fast-paced agency life can be. It's always rare to find time for internal projects, but our developers are very passionate about learning new technologies and has always got a pet project on the go. He was commuting from Leicester to London every day, which I think is about 2 hours. And he was working on this on his train journey. So every Monday morning he'd present to the team new pages that he'd been working on, showcasing new features. And pretty quickly he had a skeleton demo store, which included a checkout with a Stripe integration. We were not only shocked with the rapid progress that he'd made, but we couldn't believe how fast the front end was working. Filtering products was pretty much instant, and page reloads were under 10 milliseconds. The whole team was really, really excited about the prospect of developing using this front end. And then everyone started contributing ideas to the project. During this process, we have had to make several big technical decisions along the way. And some of the discussions between developers have been heated, to say the least. But this was such a breath of fresh air for us. We were choosing what languages and frameworks we wanted to use, not what was automatically shipped with Magento. And finally, we had taken back control. It was a really good feeling. When we first started on this project, a lot was missing from Magento's GraphQL endpoints, and this caused us some big problems as we were calling on both REST and GraphQL APIs to get the data that we needed on the front end. Some of the other big problems we found were how to handle front end sessions for logged in customers and how to route URLs. Now this is where the middleman was born. Same thing as a middleware. Now being PHP developers, it made sense for us to build a bespoke middleware using Laravel. It served us well, but currently we're in the process of replacing this with Nuxt.js as our technical skills in-house have moved more deeper into JavaScript. The middleman has several purposes, but in the early days it combined GraphQL and REST APIs along with adding in additional caching layers, which I'll talk about shortly. Magento has now migrated everything over from REST to be available in GraphQL, which we have rolled out to the front end with each release. So that Vue versus React. Now developers could argue about this one for hours on end. Based on our team's previous experience with Vue, we decided this would be the best option for us. None of us had used React, but we knew this was the route that Magento was taking for its PWA Studio. We're still really pleased that we chose Vue and went down our own path, and the team love using the framework. It's very quick to learn for new members of the team. It hasn't all been plain sailing. Taking the framework from side project and using it on commercial projects has definitely thrown up its challenges. All the great planning in the world can't prepare for real world problems and unique client requests. One of the first product listing pages we built using the framework had over 200 products. Each of those had their own size variations in small, medium and large. Then we very quickly worked out that getting that amount of data from Magento's GraphQL API was causing a serious bottleneck. So to combat this, we introduced a separate caching layer that was stored in Redis. Now each time a product is changed or the stock values are adjusted by the ERP, that Redis cache object needs to be cleaned and then warmed before appearing on the front end. Also, to speed up these requests even further on the front end, we put everything behind Varnish, added individual Varnish cache clearing into that cache warming process I was just talking about. It's also worth pointing out that we've configured Magento itself to use Varnish for its GraphQL calls, and this comes out of the box with Magento 2.3 and reduces server usage considerably. When we're working with a default Magento templating system, error logging is pretty solid. We never really had to worry about that part of development before. But yeah, when building our own custom front end, error logging and handling needed to be thought about. This has definitely improved as our framework has progressed, but something that made debugging issues pretty hard at the beginning. And front-end state management impacts the design stage as well as development. So we found we needed far more UI components to account for things like notifications, form messaging, and really importantly, loading sequences to show users something happening when they're clicking on things. So as there's no page reload, you have to tell the customer visually that, yeah, we're logging you in, yeah, your order's being placed, etc. As this is a DigitalOcean conference, I guess you're all interested in our hosting solution. About 7 years ago, we switched from a traditional bare metal dedicated hosting over to the cloud. As an agency, we always wanted to focus on our area of expertise. So our developers are proficient in configuring and managing servers, but with the introduction of cloud, we needed a partner to be an extension of our team to allow us to focus on what we do best. During that partner selection process, we found Cloudways. We were really impressed with their level of expertise, specifically with the cloud and their service levels they could offer an agency such as ourselves. Initially, they helped us migrate a couple of test clients over to their infrastructure, and since then, we've never looked back. Their premium level support is what separates them from other partners. Having direct access to their engineers over Slack is invaluable to us. They never draw the line between application and server, so if we're struggling to fix a bug or an issue that could well be the application, they'll jump in, no questions asked, and help us fix it. And most of our projects use Magento Community, that's self-hosted, and we deploy Magento 2 onto Cloudways using their pre-optimized DigitalOcean servers, then make client-specific changes through their application control panel. And not much has changed with the introduction of headless, but we've made a few performance adjustments to cater for the hammering that GraphQL gets. So pretty much all of the power needed to host Magento admin panel and GraphQL. The front end application has pretty small imprint on the servers, so you can sort of use all the CPU and RAM for those back end services. One of the huge benefits of using Cloudways and DigitalOcean is the ability to deploy multiple applications. Now in our case, that's usually Magento with our front end, potentially WordPress thrown in there if that's a requirement. But yeah, we can set this up ourselves through our self-managed control panel. We also have access to third-party caching layers such as Redis and Varnish, which is perfect for our small to medium-sized clients. So by configuring Magento and our front end to use Varnish, we massively reduced the imprints of the applications. And we could handle substantial traffic even on single-tier architecture. I'm really looking forward to the challenges that cluster-based hosting will bring to our bespoke setup, but that's something for another day. Having all these services being able to run on single instances allows us to keep our clients' monthly hosting bill pretty affordable for their size of business, which is great. As part of this presentation, I would like to take you through one of our most recent Magento 2 headless sites. This is Jo Loves. Now, Jo Malone is a British perfumer who is the founder of companies Jo Malone, which you probably would have heard of, and Jo Loves. So Jo Malone sold her brand to Estee Lauder back in 1999, and she continued to be the creative director up until 2006. After leaving Estee Lauder, she missed operating a business and the creativity behind her fragrances, so created Jo Loves in 2011. Lime Sharp were commissioned to redesign the Magento 1 store back in 2014, and we've just relaunched their headless Magento 2 site. We've got a really good relationship with the team at Jo Loves. We've thoroughly enjoyed working on this project. So some of the key objectives for the new site was building out kind of Jo's character and personality that she's synonymous for. So she appears regularly on TV, and she's a sort of household name, really. So we wanted to reinforce the brand with kind of her storytelling behind each of the fragrances. Through the discovery process, we found that there were two kind of main types of visitors. So someone that had who knew the brand already, who maybe previously shopped in the store or through the site, and very much knew the exact types of products that they were looking for. And that's compared to obviously brand new customers who maybe didn't understand exactly what Jo Loves brand was, where it's come from, who needed a bit more educating around the brand and the fragrances that are on offer. And this is where we created two distinctive kind of navigation structure. So if you click on shop, these are all very product-driven, traditional e-commerce style pages. So if we go through to the fragrance page here, you'll notice that it's a very standard e-commerce grid, very focused on shopping. You have all the kind of typical e-commerce features here, such as the refine, so you can go through and filter different products. And you can also kind of add to bag directly from here in different sizes. Obviously, you're probably noticing that none of the pages are kind of reloading at all. It has a single page app feel because it's headless. So yeah, I've been on the site already, got a few products in my bag. And that traditional e-commerce style of category was then converted into more of a collections style page. So these pages were created as a lot more storytelling behind each of the fragrance. So if we go through to White Rose and Lemon Leaves, you'll see here that the page structure is very different. It's kind of more editorial, more content based, with a lot more kind of lifestyle photography. So here we're pulling out individual fragrance notes, nice kind of lifestyle photography, full screen, and sort of fulfilling that brief of bringing through Jo's character and personality and the stories behind her fragrances that everyone really loves. Obviously, it's an e-commerce site, so sort of backing up that content with product information, always being able to purchase directly from each of these collection pages. So we've pulled out sort of 3 featured products from the collection here, and also a CTA to go through to all the products. And then lastly, on these pages, we have the fragrance discovery gift experience. So this concept was to give brand new customers the ability to try out all the fragrances, so they can order the whole range in a very small size that comes to the door, choose a different fragrance every day, and then potentially go through and purchase a full bottle of the one that they like the most. So if you go through to one of the product pages here, again, you'll see we're backing up kind of lifestyle, really nice photography with sort of key e-commerce route to purchase, and always sort of backing up the pages with Jo's character and personality. Another benefit of going headless was the ability to completely have no restrictions on the design from Magento side of things. So we created, we sort of repurposed the Magento reviews, calling them scent stories, and creating our own way of displaying the reviews. So that was one of the sort of key benefits of being headless. We also have third-party integrations on here with applications like Clevu. So this is a kind of third-party API that we pull in here to drive all the products information. So if we type in one of the fragrances, it's all pulled into our concertina, and there's no restrictions here. So we can click directly through to the product. And then just lastly, if any of you have worked with Magento before, you'll know customizing the cart and the checkout is really, really difficult. So obviously, by going headless, it gives us way more flexibility on being able to add in things like product sampling, and a really kind of stripped back, nice, very fast to load checkout.
We are constantly looking at ways to make our framework easier to develop, improve the performance, and the ability to offer new functionality to our clients. One of the reasons we set out on our headless journey was to be able to start offering a progressive web app to our clients. So most of our clients have upwards of like 70% mobile traffic, and we hugely benefit from the features of PWA. PWA could be an entirely separate presentation, but as an overview, this technology was arguably introduced by Steve Jobs at Apple back in 2007 under a different name, but PWA was coined by Google in 2015. Now, the main selling point of progressive web apps are they can work without a connection. So you could be on public transport and your connection drops, but you can still continue to shop, add to bag, and even check out all whilst offline. Now they have near instant page reloads and support push notifications and other native app-like features. So to deploy a full PWA experience, first you have to build a headless front end that uses the API. Now that was our first step, and then 2021 we're going to be adding our own PWA solution to our framework, which is pretty exciting. And all the developers are pretty buzzing about that as well. With the acquisition of Magento by Adobe, so we've seen considerable investments in improving the product, and we've seen this make it into the community version as well. And we're particularly excited by the addition of a new API called Storefront that's coming this year. We're hoping that will allow us to directly query the API on the front end for those catalog heavy information that I was talking to you about before. This will allow us to remove that additional complexity of the catalog cache that was currently storing in Redis. And lastly, we've been looking at replacing our PHP Laravel application that handles sessions, routing, and some cache layers. We're looking to replace that with Nuxt. So that's my presentation. Thank you for listening today. I hope you have got some value from the talk. In summary, it's been no easy feat changing the way we build our e-commerce stores. And as with all technology, there are problems that need solving along the way. But this project has allowed us to address so many of the past issues we had, and is making us a better, stronger agency that our clients are benefiting from now.